I thought that you and I should talk about anxiety.
Oh.
What do you mean, oh?
I don't know. I thought it was something different.
All right, what did you think I was going to say?
I don't know, but I didn't think it was going to be anxiety. Hello.
The dog is in your lap right now. Okay, so let's talk about anxiety. What makes you anxious? You're 17 years old. Name the top 3 things that make you anxious. Talk into the mic.
Yes, I'm sorry. Planes, crowds, and puking.
Puking, planes, and crowds?
See.
Why do those 3 things make you anxious?
A lack of control. Yeah, thought a lot about it.
And how would you describe anxiety?
Just like such like a feeling of uneasiness that just doesn't go away. And then it boils into a sense of like worry. Oh, I'm gone. like a feeling of just like so not in control and everything's like falling apart and you're just like, what the is going on? And can I swear?
Why not?
Okay.
You're 17. I know, it's cool.
Yeah.
Does it start in your body usually or in your head?
My body.
And where do you feel anxiety when you feel it?
Top of the chest, right here.
Oh, you feel it in the top of your chest?
And then into my neck and then like here.
Where's here? And what's it feel like?
Like I'm gonna puke.
It always feels like you're going to puke, whether you're on a plane or you're in crowds. Like that's the signal.
Yes.
And then what do your thoughts say?
I'm gonna puke.
Even when you're on a plane.
Yes.
And so, tell me the worst experience. I want a good story.
That's like impossible. Oh my God. Because there are just so many. They happen all the time.
Now?
No, not now. I mean, a few times, but not as much.
So describe the last time you had an anxiety attack.
Like a bad one?
Yeah.
Like a really bad one?
Like a really bad one.
Okay.
And what qualifies as a really bad anxiety attack?
Okay, I can give you the tier list. So there's like there's like not that bad where it's just kind of like, oh, like I feel uncomfortable right now, but like whatever. There's like, oh, this isn't that great when like I start to feel like light and like empty here and I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And then there is like, what's really shitty. And the shitty ones I know happen when it's like my whole face feels really hot and then I just like am all over like really hot and uncomfortable and I think I'm gonna throw up. So it is, and most of the time those only happen when I don't get enough sleep. So I get a lot of sleep. So anyways, it's like 3 weeks before school's about to end and I'm in chemistry class. This is not about that. And I'm just like sitting in chemistry class. I'm so tired.
Okay,
I can't do
the
this
dog
right now.
is like, hold on one second.
And
YOLO, enough. Listen to the story. Okay,
It's
so back to chemistry class.
Yes. I need to put this right in my mouth. Oh, there you go. Perfect. I probably could have done that. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so 3 weeks before school, and what year are you?
I'm a sophomore.
You're a sophomore in high school.
Yes, I am.
So this was literally like just a couple months ago.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in class listening to the most boring lecture ever. I don't even know what it is about. But all of a sudden I feel my face start to get like really hot. And I was like, like I know what's about to happen. And then like my chest got really light and I was like, oh my God, like this is bad. And I was like, I need to go to the bathroom, but if I miss this, then I'm like, I don't have this.
If you miss what?
Like what the teacher's saying.
But could you even hear the teacher when your face is bright red and you feel the anxiety coming?
No, not really. So I'm just kind of sitting there like, damn, I wonder when this is over. And I was like closing my eyes and I was like breathing in and out. My friends are like, are you meditating? And I was like, yep. As I'm like about to like burst. And then it didn't really go anywhere from there.
That's the worst?
Yeah. Actually, there was this one time, you're going to remember this, I think. I think we were going to Eleuthera. Oh no. We were coming home from the Caribbean. Do you remember this?
Yes. This is a story that makes me look like a terrible parent.
We were coming home from the Caribbean and we're on the plane and I'm really tired, so I like lay my head down in your lap, and all of a sudden I feel like this like stabbing pain in my stomach. Like someone has literally taken a knife and stabbed me in the stomach. And I'm screaming. I was screaming.
True.
I was literally
crying,
yelling. I was like, I can't do this. Like, this hurts so much, Mom.
I have to get off this plane.
I need to get off this plane right now.
But the plane was 30,000 feet in the air. And it sounded like you were having an irrational panic attack, and you were whipping yourself into a frenzy, and it was not at the level, you described 4 levels, it was not at the level 5, knock on the door of the pilot, where the pilots sit, and ask them to divert the plane so my son can get on the ground. It was not at that level.
But I was like, it was like, so like literally I'd be like hunched up, and every time I felt it, I'd have to like fully stretch out my body just because it was so painful. And the only thing I remember you telling me was we were sitting next to this lady, and bless her heart, because she was literally listening to some like kids screaming their head off. You were like, she's a kindergarten teacher. And I was like, you suck. Like, how is that going to help me? As I'm like lying there.
Because kindergarten teachers, the reason why I told you that, and it was true, is because kindergarten teachers have to deal with kids who are afraid of throwing up all the time. Because do you know the number 1 fear?
Throwing up.
That kids have?
Throwing up.
Do you know number 2?
Spiders.
No.
Dying.
Parents dying.
Okay.
Is that true for you?
I'm afraid of it, but I wouldn't say it's my number 1 fear.
Okay, what's your number 1 fear?
Throwing up.
Still.
Yes.
And
I can do it. I could literally like, boom, done.
Then why are you afraid of it?
It's the feeling. I don't like the feeling before, because that's like the lack of control. You can't control how you feel before you throw up. Throwing up, whatever, you get it out, you're done. But like, you can't control when it's gonna happen or how it's gonna happen. You just kind of lay and wait, which I don't like.
That's true about all anxiety, by the way. Because anxiety is never about right now. Anxiety is about what's about to happen and thinking it's going to be the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
So keep going.
So we get off this plane.
Yep.
And I am just like crying, and then all of a sudden I threw up everywhere.
Everywhere. In the middle of Logan Airport. Everywhere.
Dad had to like grab me by the shoulders and like drag me to the public restroom as I'm like puking a trail.
I get a ton of questions from people about the best ways to support kids or friends your age when they are feeling anxious. So maybe start with, what should we not do? YOLO. Our dog is scratching himself.
I mean, I always hated when you guys just said like change the channel, because I was like, how the hell am I supposed to change the channel when all I can think about right now is the fear of throwing up?
So let me just explain what that means.
It means think about something else.
Yes.
It literally just means like, hey, like, you think you're gonna throw up? Think about like anything. Think about like a TV show. I'm like, I can't.
Well,
I physically can't think about a TV show.
That was what a therapist told us to say to you.
Well, that therapist was bad.
That's not true. So don't say change the channel, because if you're already scared about throwing up, you can't possibly take control of your mind and think about something else.
You honestly, like, you need to just have like the patience of a monk.
Why?
Just because like I remember so many times where you like, another time on a plane, there's this one time where I was just like sitting there, and all of a sudden I got so anxious, and I remember standing up and like being in the hall and being in like that little walkway, and I was looking at you. And I was like, Mom, like, I'm freaking out. And you were like, I can't do this right now. Like, please, just be quiet. And I was like, Mom, I'm so scared right now. And you're just telling me to, like, shut up. Which wasn't good. And so it's like, there's nothing you can do. Well, I mean, I have, like, certain methods of
Okay, so what are the methods that you have to deal with?
Okay, they're pretty weird. So, first one, if I feel anxious, I go to the bathroom and I eat toothpaste.
What?
Or
why? Hold on, stop.
Or use mouthwash.
Stop. Why?
Not like eat. Not like just like taste it. Like brush my teeth essentially, but like not brush my teeth.
So why do you go to the bathroom and eat a nurdle of toothpaste.
Because it's such, like, the mint is so strong.
Okay.
That it's just, like, it's all I can think about. The other thing that's pretty similar to that is I smell, like, nail polish remover.
What?
Because it's just, like, such a strong scent, and it's so sharp that it just, like, overwhelms me. And I can't think about anything but that smell.
That can't be healthy.
I know, it's not.
How often do you do this?
Not anymore. When it was really bad, I'd do it whenever I got anxious.
Which was how often?
Like once a week.
Oh, well, that's not every day.
No.
Okay, and what else do you do?
Like get away from people. Just like be alone. The best thing to do for me is to be alone and to breathe, like focus on breathing. It's hard to be in like a public area for me and like do it just because I'm also like anxious about being judged for meditating in public for some reason.
Why?
I don't know. It's just easier to do it in private because I'm just like not thinking about anybody else. I'm like, this is all I need right now. So like when I get anxious and there's like somewhere I can go, I'm like, cool, let it go. So when I'm on a plane and I can't go anywhere, I'm like,
well, why do you need to go somewhere? Can't you just sit there and
because it's also nice to have a change of scenery. It's nice to get up and get moving and like do something, and you can't move on a plane. And I also think I'm gonna die on a plane. So there's just so much with planes that I just am not okay with. Literally every time I get on a plane, I'm like, this is my last time alive, which I know is so morbid, but it's like, and I know you're like being in a plane is safer than being in a car, but it's just like, I can't be in a plane. Cause like, I can't imagine like the dude coming on the intercom and being like, we're going down. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait? Like, no. So.
How do you manage that? Cause we do fly.
I don't. I literally just like sit in fear for.
The entire time?
Whenever there's turbulence or when we're landing or taking off. That's terrifying.
Why?
You know the one story that Kendall told us about like one of her friends that like used to fly planes and all of a sudden his plane like broke and he was trying to land and just went straight down?
Yes.
Like I think about that every single day.
Kendall, our daughter, or my daughter, his sister, had a friend who died in high school. He was a pilot.
He was just like doing his like flight exam basically.
Yeah.
He was with his pilot, or he was like with like a trained pilot. His instructor. And I think it was his last flight.
Yep.
And he was just like, he was about to land the plane and all of a sudden the plane just like nosedives. And they just like both died. And I'm like, oh my God.
This is an empowering and uplifting podcast.
Listen, you asked what made me anxious. Like, I'm going to give you the answer.
So what happened sophomore year? Because you said, you know, this anxiety hit you for a week period in March freshman year.
Gone. Forgotten about.
But the shit hit the fan sophomore year.
God.
Oh.
So.
It's terrifying.
Flashback. Beginning of sophomore year. Sophomore year is awesome. I loved my sophomore year. Great friends. Great experiences. Great classes. Super fun. It was great. It was same time, March, or was it April? Might have been April. I think
we're gonna have to track this year.
We will have to track this. Hey, it's coming to that time.
It is.
Not yet. Anyways, April comes around, and everything's good. You know, yeah, everything's good. And then in my English class, like I just talked about, my teacher had us write a memoir about anything we wanted. And so in sophomore year, I wrote about my experience that I had freshman year.
Okay.
Around the same time. And so by writing that, I basically like mentally dove back into that mindset, not mindset, but like into that time. And I remembered how I felt, and I remembered what it was like. And I remember the hopelessness and the anxiety. Anyways, so I had brought myself back to those emotions. I remembered them. I kind of brought myself back to a time where I was super vulnerable, and I had to go back and be vulnerable in that moment. And then
I can see your eyes tearing up just thinking about it.
Not really. Not in this moment.
A little bit.
Okay.
Not gonna lie. A little
and
bit.
So those thoughts are fresh in my mind. And since I was a sophomore and it was a year later, I wanted to try and like unpack it and think about what it actually meant, why I felt that way. And while I was doing that, like a week rolled around, and the next week in that class, my English teacher, again, showed us a movie. And this movie was about climate change. And it was about how in like 5 years, it's irreversible and we're fucked. And it was like possible solutions and all this stuff. And then it told us what would happen if these solutions didn't happen. And so I come out of the movie and I'm like, what could we do? Like, realistically, like as a world, like what can we do?
Okay.
So I started thinking about my town and then my state and then my country and then the world. And then I was like, what if we can't do anything? What, like, can somebody else help us? And then I was like, is there somebody else? And I was thinking about the universe. And then I was thinking about like expanding. We become a pebble. We become a grain of sand. We become literally like nothing. Like we become nothing in my mind. And all of a sudden it's like a light switch in my mind where I'm like, holy shit, like nothing matters. Absolutely nothing matters to me. Nothing I do.
Do not get yourself back in that state. Okay. Well, I was just like I don't.
No. So nothing matters. Nothing I do will have an effect. Nothing anybody does will change anything. So why do anything? Why? And so I thought about that. And I kept thinking about that, being like, there has to be an answer. There has to be an answer. And like a week passes and there's no answer. And then all of a sudden, I start to get these nervous anxiety attacks where I'm lightheaded and I can't think and everything is rushing out of my head and I'm scared and I'm confused. And it's all because in those moments, I keep telling myself that nothing I do is going to matter. No one I talk to, nothing I do, nothing will ever change anything. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what anybody does.
The world's going to end.
Because the world, not the world's going to end, but just like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. We do not matter.
Got it. Climate change and the inability.
No, climate change wasn't my thought.
Okay,
it wasn't about the world ending. The movie about climate change sparked like a thing about like me thinking about.
Do I even matter?
The bigger picture.
Got
and then I realized that I was like, I don't matter. Nobody matters. The world doesn't matter.
Well, let me pick up the story now.
Well, it's not done yet.
Well, because in this instance, you let us know what was going on.
That is what was going on. And it was moments of, there was one moment we were eating dinner together.
Yeah.
And I just had to like get up and go to the bathroom and like look in the mirror and be like, you're okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, you'll get through this. And I was like, I can't get through this. Like, I can't do this. And in that bathroom, I was like, if this keeps up, like, I am going to kill myself. Like, I will. 'Cause like, that's how scared I was. Like, I couldn't live with this fact and I couldn't accept the fact that I felt like nothing mattered.
Yeah. It was a terrifying thing to go through with you.
It was so.
Because you had a complete breakdown and you started explaining that these thoughts had been cascading and you didn't want to think this, but you didn't know how to stop it. And I'll never forget that because I was holding you and you were crying and you were scared and I was crying and scared. And it had just come out of nowhere that you had gone from just thinking and not telling us to a complete breakdown.
Yeah.
And I asked you, I was like, are you in danger right now? Are you going to hurt yourself? And do you remember what you said?
I said no. I
was
like,
no.
I'm too scared to do that. Like,
and
I don't want to.
Yeah. And you also said no. But I can't live like this, Mom. I can't keep thinking these thoughts. And I kept going, what thoughts? And you kept saying, I don't matter. Nothing matters.
I feel like even to this day, like I still can't truly explain the thoughts that I was having because it was just like, I can't like wrap my head around them. And so like, I was like dying to like explain it to you. And every time I like told you something, you'd be like, oh, so is it this? And I was like, that's not it. Like, that's not it. And like, I just like couldn't figure out what to say.
You did a really good job of explaining it. You know, when I would have very acute moments of anxiety when I was younger, I would have this thing happen that was equally scary, Oak, where I didn't have the thoughts go first. Nothing matters. I would all of a sudden feel this weird thing happen in my body. Like you called it like a switch that flipped. And all of a sudden, I would have this experience where everything felt fake. almost like the Truman Show.
Right.
Or that your whole life is a set that's fake. Right. And I would repeatedly have this feeling that if the wind blew, all of these walls in this room would just flop down.
Like a TV set.
Like a TV set. And I would find myself in the middle of the desert with no one in sight. And the only person, and is Earth even real? And is this room even real? Like, that's how it was. Terrifying. Yeah. Absolutely terrifying. Yeah. So I understand what that's like. And for those of you wondering what we did, I went into first responder mode. Do you remember?
You wouldn't let me sleep alone.
I know. I slept
you wouldn't
in your bed.
You wouldn't let me be alone. Oh my God. You took me out of school.
Yep.
For a week.
For a mental health.
We went back to Massachusetts.
Yep. To see doctors.
I'm trying to think about what else you did.
I wouldn't let you be alone. I wouldn't let you sleep alone. I made you eat. Dad meditated with you.
Yeah.
We got you into therapy as fast as possible.
Yeah.
You
got on medication.
Tried some medication that really
Still
helped.
On it. It's the best.
Help you climb out of that hole, man. Like, sometimes you need a ladder.
Yeah, you do.
Sometimes you also need a surfboard. And so they can work both ways, and they work. Mm-hmm. So that is what led you
to therapy.
What
a segue. This is like, oh wait, also I feel
it's a 25-minute segue.
I want to say another thing. Can I talk about the John Mayer song?
Sure.
In terms of it? Okay, like jumping back before we go to therapy. At the time, there was this song that I still love today. But I think it also contributed to my anxiety. It's there's this like underground artist. His name's John Mayer. I don't know if any of you know who he is, but I think he's a pretty good artist. And there's one of his songs. It's called "Stop This Train." And basically, like, train symbolizes time and how like time keeps moving. And like John, I don't know if I should call him John. We're not friends, but like John Mayer wants the train or time to stop. And it's just like him being like, stop time. Like, let me stay where I am. Like, I want to get off. Like, I just want to be with what I am right now. And then it ends with him like talking to his dad, and his dad's like, don't stop like time. Like, just like, you just want to hold on and just like keep going for as long as you can and just like appreciate it and be in it. And like, I think, oh my goodness.
It's making you emotional.
Oh my God, it always does. And
why? Why does that make you emotional?
Because like time is just like, oh my God, that's too much. Like, that's too scary. Not scary, but like that's just so much to think about. Like how like time is just gonna keep going.
Yeah. You know, I always have that feeling when I'm in a museum, and you know, I'll be looking at a painting, and I lean forward, and it's like something has been painted in the 1800s.
Jeez.
Have you had that experience?
I'm way too bored in a museum to ever pay attention to dates. So I would love to be like a museum guy, but I can't. Because it's just like fun and like mysterious, and it makes you like more interesting. I've actually gotten into museums more than I used to be, but I don't know. My memories of museums were always just like, this is the most boring thing ever, like staring at a wall for 15 minutes.
Meanwhile, your mother is having a small existential crisis as she's looking at paintings, because as I lean forward, I'm like, this was painted in the 1800s? That means there is a person standing in front of this canvas 200 and whatever years ago. I can't even do the math on this. Mm-hmm. And they're not here anymore.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel so small in the timeline of humanity. And it's the same kind of thing that you're talking about.
Yeah. And so like that song just sparked something in me where I was like, time is going to keep going, and like it won't like
slow down.
It won't slow down, and like that's scary, and like that added to everything. And
yeah,
that's the whole John Mayer story. Anyways, John Mayer, if you're listening, please contact me immediately because I love you.
I remember that day because you texted
did I like call
me.
You
you
and
called
I was like,
me
yeah,
sobbing again. You love to cry. You're a good crier because you were so grateful for your life, and you were grateful to be up here in Southern Vermont and for our family, and that song played, and you were calling me from the high school parking lot crying about how much you love your life. And who knew that just 3 weeks later it would like boom, it would completely collapse and you would be in probably the worst mental breakdown I've ever seen you.
Yeah.
Really scary as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud of you, though. I'm proud of you for asking for help, for telling us the truth, for seeing a therapist, for taking medication, for turning toward it to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Anxiety, if this is the first time you're thinking about it, anxiety is what happens when you are worrying about something in the future that makes you feel uncertain or makes you feel like you're going to lose control. That's it. Anxiety is when you start worrying about things in the future that make you feel uncertain or make you feel like you're about to lose control, and you start to get a stomach ache, or you start to feel tightness in your throat, or you start to shake your hands, or you start to have your heart race, or you start to have sweaty palms. Your body starts to get agitated because you're really busy worrying about the test tomorrow. You're really busy worrying about whether or not you're going to throw up. You're really busy worrying about that sleepover and whether or not it's going to go okay. You're really busy worrying about whether or not your friends are going to talk to you when you walk into school today. Or you're busy worrying that something might happen to your parents. Why did I give you those examples? There was a specific reason why. The top worries that kids 12 and under have are, number one, throwing up. Now, why would throwing up cause kids anxiety? Because as an adult, you've probably done it a bunch. And so you know, you throw up, it's over, it sucks, but that's it. There's no sense getting yourself worked up about it. But for kids, this is the number one thing that kids are afraid of, because it is an enormous loss of control when it happens. And it scares a lot of kids to have that happening to them because their brains aren't matured and they don't understand that it's just a moment. So they're not actually worried about the throwing up. They're having anxiety because they're thinking that it could happen at some point, and that makes their body feel weird. And then, of course, because their body feels weird, it makes them certain that it's coming. I mean, kids can actually, I have a son that actually made himself throw up because he got so worked up thinking that he might, that he caused himself to. This is a true story. Absolutely true story. So I have lived this. Being worried about you dying, major cause of worry for kids. They think about it. And if they think about it too much and they don't have a process and a plan around how to live with that very normal fear, it will turn into anxiety. The social pressures of being accepted, going to a sleepover and being worried about what's going to happen because you've never been to the house before. You don't really like dogs and they have one. Your friend's dad kind of scares you. What time are we going to go to bed? You see, there's a lot of uncertainty that we adults don't think about when it relates to sleepovers at new friends' houses that your kids are worrying about. And if they stay up here and they start worrying about all the uncertainty, it's going to cause their body to start to freak out. And then the whole thing starts to spiral. And next thing they don't want to go, or they get there and they're on edge and they need to come home. Again, we've had that situation in our family too, where the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of something that's supposed to be fun. When am I going to bed? What are we going to eat? Will I throw up while I'm there? Are they going to like me? What are their parents like? What TV are we going to watch? What time are you picking me up in the morning? All of those unanswered questions and the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of that triggers the anxiety in your kids. This is what's happening in their brains. The rejection of friends. You know, the group dynamics of kids, particularly in middle school, brutal. You couldn't pay me millions of dollars to go back to middle school at this point. But your kids are walking into it every day and they're worrying about whether or not they're being accepted, because every moment in school is a moment of uncertainty about whether or not you're going to get the answer right, whether or not people are going to laugh, whether or not you're wearing the right things. And so again, these are all the things that trigger your child to worry because they are racked with situations that cause uncertainty and that make our kids feel like they might lose control. Now, here's the major mistake that you and I make as parents. When our kids start to worry, or when our kids start to feel anxious, which is the agitation in their body, you know what you and I immediately do? We immediately try to fix it. we swoop right in and we start to either say, you're going to be okay, and we assure them, because we're trying to fix it, right? We're trying to make the worry go away. We say, oh, well, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. And so we answer all their questions, and we start to put in all kinds of certainty for them. And that is the exact opposite thing that you and I should be doing. And it's not our fault. We've kind of been doing it forever, haven't we? I mean, we're always worried about our kids. And so we put up gates at the top of stairs so that they don't fall down. We've got child locks on caps so that they don't eat anything. We stopped buying the Tide Pods because we didn't want them to choke on it. Like, as parents, we're constantly anticipating things that could go wrong. We're putting in controls. And so it is natural for you and me to jump into fix-it mode. If you want to get your kid to move beyond the grip of anxiety, you have to understand how your behavior is contributing to the anxiety itself. See, one of the things that I believe about anxiety is the reason why we develop it and the reason why we keep it around is because it works. I mean, if your kid is anxious and they start freaking out, they don't have to go to school. So all of a sudden, that situation that they felt uncomfortable around, they've now gained control because the anxiety worked. You swooped in, you fixed it, you said, that's okay, you don't have to go. And the problem with doing this is that we might be managing the momentary breakdown, but we are not teaching our kids a critical skill in life, and that is the ability to tolerate not knowing, and the ability in the face of not knowing to assure yourself that no matter what, you'll figure it out. That is one of the most critical things that you could teach your kids. The self-reliance, the resiliency, the courage, and the confidence to know that even though I feel a little nervous, and even though I don't have all the answers, I can trust that I can figure it out. And so that's the kind of biggest picture, that I want you to switch your mind from thinking you got to fix this for your kids. And that's us buying into the anxiety. And realize that when anxiety is present, it means that your child, my child, can't cope with uncertainty. And now as a parent, it's my job to teach them how. Which brings me to what you're going to do. So it's a process to do this. And it's going to require you to change how you relate to their anxiety. Because if you're guilty of trying to fix it just like I am, you're going to have to change that. When your child starts feeling very anxious about something or getting worried about puking or worried about the test or worried, in my case, I'm dealing with this right now with our teenager who has a massive audition. Are we off? Are we over? No. Okay. I'm sorry. We're at our offices in a conference room we've reserved and people were gathering. My daughter has a massive audition this weekend. And she's starting to get nervous. And why shouldn't she? I mean, this is a really big deal. She should be excited, but she's about to do something huge. And so, of course, that's going to be natural. I can't buy into it. Because if I buy into it, I'm going to make it worse. Because I'm going to try to fix her nerves. I need to validate. This is advice number one. Always validate where your kid is. Always. I get that you're nervous. I get that you are feeling anxious about this. I get that your stomach hurts. I get that you are doing all kinds of X, Y, and Z, and you have a right to be. Hold on one second. Were we good?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure if there's another.
Sorry, we might be getting kicked out of our conference room in case we'll mobilize. So number one, validate. You have to validate where they're at, because part of the problem is our normal reaction is to go into fix-it mode, which completely jumps over them feeling like that you don't even get the feelings that they're feeling. The second thing that we do is we go, calm down, I'll help you fix this. And saying calm down, that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. Because when you say calm down to a child that's worried or anxious, what you're actually saying is, your worries don't matter to me. Your worries are silly. Your worries aren't valid. And so the last thing that you should ever say is calm down, because it sends the exact opposite message of what you want. So number one, validate. Totally get that you're nervous. I know that this is important to you. Tell you what, we're going to work together to make a plan. That is the number one word you want to say. Plan, plan, plan. Because when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to worries about the future, think about this for a minute. They're getting triggered by the fact that things are uncertain. They're getting triggered by the fact that, in my case this weekend, my daughter doesn't know how her audition's going to go. Your child's getting triggered by the fact that they don't know how the test is going to go. And so what you want to do is teach your child that in moments of uncertainty, the solution is not to panic, it's to plan. And that's where your skills come in. So here's what you're going to do. What I want you to do today is I want you to sit down with your son or daughter, and I want you to go through and identify all the things that trigger them to start worrying. All of the things that trigger them to feel anxious about something. Is it a friend situation? Is it a tryout situation like my daughter has this weekend? Is it a fear of throwing up at school? What is the thing that your child is worrying about? And if they're just worried about school, break it down further. You guide them through the process of taking this big thing, which is uncertainty and not knowing, and breaking it down into what exactly are you concerned about. The next thing that you're going to do, once you identify the triggers and you get them to describe the situation that they're worrying about, is you're going to come up with a plan. This is critical, okay? So let me give you some examples of it. A plan might be, we used to do this with our son, Oakley. A plan might be, okay, you're nervous about this sleepover. You're nervous because you've never been to the house before. You're nervous because they have 5 or 6 dogs and you don't know what that's going to be like. You're nervous because you don't know what time they're going to go to bed. You're nervous because you don't know what you're going to have for dinner. And you're nervous about that because you're nervous that if it triggers something in your throat, you might throw up. And you're nervous that you're not going to be able to sleep through the middle of the night. You're nervous that if you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to know what to do and you're going to get scared. Like, you will be shocked when you start to actually ask your kids questions. Okay, and what else? What else? Oh, yeah, okay, I totally get that. I get that that worries you. What else? Remember, you're going to ask them, validate. Ask them, validate. Now that you have all the things that they're worried about, come up with a plan. This is called A-B planning. When you come up with a A-B plan, you are, based on the research, 67% more likely to be successful with your plan. And one of the cool things about kids and anxiety is that when you have pre-planned what they're going to do in the event one of these things that they're worried about happens, since you've pre-planned what they're going to do, guess what you've removed? The uncertainty. It works like magic. Okay, great. So you're worried about dinner. What do you think we could do in order to remove the worry? Oh, I don't know. Well, do you think you could text your friend and ask them what they're having for dinner? Is there something you're concerned that they're serving? Because if you're concerned that they're serving something, we can pack you something to eat if you don't like it. Is that a plan that makes you feel better? Yep, it sure does. What are you going to do at 2 o'clock in the morning if you wake up and you want to come home? I'll tell you what, you're going to call me. Well, why does that worry you? Well, I'm worried you won't hear it. Okay, well, let me show you. What kind of plan can we come up with that will give you control over a situation that you're worried about? Oh, you're going to leave your phone in your bedroom. I'm turning on the ringer, so I trust that it's going to happen. Dad's phone is going to be on. These are all planning tools that remove uncertainty. And it's also super valuable because you are teaching your child the critical skill of learning how to tolerate something that you're uncertain about, to not get triggered, and instead to make a plan so that you can live with the uncertainty and you can create control in ways that is healthy instead of having a panic attack, which makes everybody else around you try to control what's happening. Do you see how this works? I mean, it's going to take planning on your part, and it's going to take you and parenting in a different way. And, look, I've been doing this with my own anxiety for more than 2 decades. I have 2 kids in particular that have pretty consistent issues related to anxiety. And just like Mindset Reset, it's not an event, it's a process. And the things that tripped up my son and made him anxious and worried when he was 9, we've now used what I'm telling you. I've validated it. We've gone through, we've broken things down, we've made a plan, we've even practiced the plan. He used to be terrified of getting on elevators, so we came up with a plan for what would happen if we were ever in one that broke down, and we practiced the plan. And we got on elevators together. And we even went and talked to somebody at the fire department about what happens when elevators. I mean, you can dismantle anxiety through the process of validating the worry, identifying what triggers the uncertainty, and making a plan and practicing it. And in fact, it's really the only way that works. And so the cool thing is that you're teaching your kids a skill that they can apply to anything. Oakley's anxiety has basically all but disappeared. And my daughter Kendall's anxiety only comes up when there are very acute situations of high stakes, like the one that we're facing right now. So in just a second, I'm going to take some questions from you. But I want to jump in and talk a little bit about how you tweak this for teens, because your teens are probably not going to sit down with you and go through their day and unpack everything that makes them anxious. If they do, that's fantastic, and you should use the exact same process that I just outlined for younger kids. But if your teens are full-on anxiety-ridden, most of it is triggered by social stuff with their friends. Most of it is triggered by the dynamic that you and I don't even understand, that has become so much more consuming, because a couple things about teenagers that I want you to understand that are going on at the same time. Number one, you have to understand that teenagers are, what's a good word for a human being in progress? So it's sort of like a half-built house. You know what I'm saying? They're like a house that's been framed, okay? And we've got the Tyvek up, but we have not finished it yet. Your kids' brains are under development, so their ability to do complex processing or to make strategic, measured decisions, not developed yet. Boys in particular, their brain structure is very different than girls. They are more likely to take stupid risks. They're more likely not to think about the long-term consequences. Both boys and girls are having hormones rage through their systems, which also impact their ability to process things in a way that is rational at times. And then on top of it, throw in these two facts about human behavior. When you are a teenager, you go through a period in your biological development of needing to separate from your parents and to become your own independent person. It is hardwired into the DNA of every human being to go off on your own and define yourself as an individual at this stage in your life. And so if you've noticed an increase in conflict, if you've noticed that your kids push back on you, if you've noticed that your kids are asserting their independence and doing it in ways that are stupid or irrational or annoying, that is just part of the biological process of going from a framed house to figuring out how to furnish the thing and finish it off inside. They are mandated by their DNA to now start to push away from you and to become self-defined instead of defined by their family unit. At the same time, when you're a teenager, the number one important thing to you in terms of social structure is your friends. Your family is no longer the source of safety and stability for you. For most teenagers, they transfer that to their friends, and their friends become their primary group of influence, of importance, and of stability. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you may have an absolutely extraordinary relationship with your kids. I'd like to think that Chris and I do. That does not change the fact that their social standing with their friends right now are way more psychologically impactful than their relationship with you. And since you and I are not in the middle of their social interactions, and also since your teenagers have a phone 24/7, so they don't ever have a break from that social interaction unless you make the break happen, The rise of worry about how you fit in and whether or not that last text bothered somebody and whether or not, this person's mad at you or whether or not you did the right thing or whether or not this person's like, it is, I don't even know how to describe it because we didn't grow up this way. The pressure and the worry and the uncertainty and the desire and need to always feel like you're on and available and participating because of the DNA human behavior fact that your friend group is more important than anything right now. It defines who you are. That, in my opinion, has contributed dramatically to the rise in anxiety that we're seeing in teenagers because there's so much uncertainty. Every text you send, most kids are worried about how people are going to read it and whether or not people are going to think it's this or how many likes you have. It's gotten crazy out of control. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that with teenagers in particular, it is essential that you do whatever you can to not get triggered by their anxiety, by their rage, by their irrational worries, by their pushing back. There's a difference between getting triggered and drawing boundaries between destructive, unsafe, and disrespectful behavior. You can still draw boundaries between their behavior that's destructive, disrespectful, and dangerous, and you should, and you must. But from the day-to-day pushing back, the not sharing, the anxiety, the blowing up about things, this is a time in your life where you got to have a lot of room for that. I think if you've been following... Oh, there we go. Okay. If you've been following me for a while, you know that procrastination is triggered by stress. So if you also notice that your teenagers are worried about college applications, or they're worried about exams, or they're worried about this audition this weekend, like Kendall is for, this big program that she's applying to at USC, and they're blowing off what they need to do, they're not idiots. They're triggered by stress. This is a form of anxiety that kids are feeling. It's why kids procrastinate, because they feel so much stress right now. So the last thing I want you to do is to be yelling at them. The last thing that I want you to do is swoop in and fix it. The last thing that I want you to do is to take it personally. If your kids are acting out, if they're showing forms of anxiety at home, some therapists I've read and have been told tell me that that's actually a decent sign because your kids are trying to hold it together outside of your house. And when they come home, they feel safe enough psychologically that they're letting the worst out. They're letting their vulnerabilities show. They're acting out in a way because they know that it's a safe place to do so. Now, it might be irritating as hell for you. It might trigger your own anxiety. It might drive you into fix-it mode. It might, in the case that it has been for Kendall and I, ignite combative behavior between the two of you because you're both seeking control in a situation. Kendall's seeking control over the audition process and the stress she feels around it, and I'm seeking control over Kendall, who in my opinion is starting to let her anxiety get the best, and it's a disaster. So with teens, you got to do what I am actively practicing every single day right now, and that is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take 5, before you snap or get angry or try to fix it. And I want you to quiet the conversation. And I want you to validate what you observe. You seem really upset. You seem anxious. I know you're worried about the audition. Do you need support? And I want you to ask them what's going on with you. Whether it's rage, whether it's anxiety, whether it's worry, what's going on with you? Because when you quiet things down, you're not stirring the pot. You're not invalidating them by yelling at them or telling them to calm down or fixing it. You're validating where they're at. And then what you're going to do is you're going to quiet and say, what's going on and what can I do? That's it. That's it. And they'll tell you if they need help. And if they tell you nothing and you can't help, keep inquiring. Are you sure? Because you don't seem like yourself. What could I do to really support you right now? Right now. Because what you're trying to do with teens is you need to get them to slow down the emotion so that they can get back to being rational. And from there, you can start the process of breaking things down and helping them come up with a plan. Don't ever create the plan for a teenager. Don't do it. You have to make them come up with the plan, because they will not be invested in the plan you come up with, but they will be invested in one that they do. I think it's very timely that I'm talking to you and doing this interview. There is so much about your work, your story, the work that you're putting out now that is what I need to hear. And so, I'm sitting here in a home that we were building in southern Vermont. And about 2.5 years ago, I had a cracking, if you will. I think that's the word that you use too, where I'm like, I can't keep going like this. I've got to make some changes. I can't continue to be a workaholic. I cannot be racing all over the place. Like, I have got to make some changes. And so now I am sitting here in my new home that is still under construction. And we've just sold our home of 24 years outside of Boston. And I, for the first time in 23 years, am experiencing such devastating anxiety about all the changes that I've put in place that I've literally spent the last 2 weeks completely disassociated. And I went back on medication. And I'm having this experience where it's almost like I'm on a really bad drug trip, and I know that it's going to end and that the feelings are going to level out, and yet I want the feelings to stop.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so proud of you for getting back on the meds. There's a time and season.
Yes, that's true.
And as trauma survivors, we get activated when big change happens.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that it has a link to all the trauma I've been working on.
That is the whole thing.
And that's why your book, Happy Days, was just like, holy cow. I mean, this just landed right in my lap at the right time. Because why don't you tell the story about how, because I found the introduction of the book really interesting, about how this actually started in 2016.
Yeah. Well, it's not dissimilar to what you're referencing. And I'll begin by saying that, actually, let me first just speak back to you, and then I'm going to share that story. So I want to send a lot of compassion and gratitude to the dissociated part, because that part of you has done a really good job just getting by each day. Gratitude to the anxious part, love and compassion to the anxious part for revealing that you need a little extra support right now as you do deeper work. Okay. And just hold you there, because when we've been there and then we come back, it's like there's shame around that. There's so much terror around that, but it's a beautiful witnessing to see that these parts of you are coming up to give you information. And I just want to honor you for that. Self is qualities of curiosity. And so there's 3 questions you can start to ask yourself in the moment when the anxiety comes up. Instead of pushing the anxiety down, you can befriend it. And you can ask 3 questions. You can say, okay, what do I notice about the anxiety? So where does it live in my body? Would you want to do it with me right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you connected to the anxiety in this moment?
Not in this moment, but
is there something else?
Familiar with it, so I'm more.
Well, is there anything else that might be up right now that's a protector part that you're like, I want to kind of talk to?
It's interesting now that we're talking about it. I feel a little anxious.
Okay. So
like, I'm so programmed to run that staying still, which is what this new house in southern Vermont represents, this real quiet place, I feel tingly all over right now.
Okay. So there's a tingly, a desire to run, and then like this little anxiety kind of right back in the background.
Completely.
Okay, cool. Could we ask the tingliness and the desire to run to maybe just go in go out on the patio and have a coffee or have a cup of tea and just take a minute just to give us a little space to talk to the anxiety? Would that be okay with them?
Sure.
Okay. So just taking a moment to check in. You can close your eyes if you want, you can breathe, whatever you need, but just check in gently with the anxiety and ask, where is it in the body?
Right here.
Right in your chest. Yeah. Very
Yeah, like gripping like that.
gripping. Any other ways you would define it? Colors, shapes?
It's like kind of hands like this. And I'm also really warm under my armpits, but I'm not sure if that's menopause shit happening or what. But
Okay.
this, and then right here.
Tight, warm. Does it have an age or a gender?
Oh, female and older.
Older. Okay.
Yeah.
Like older than you are now?
Yeah, I think.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't think of myself as 50s, but.
No, but is it like, when you say older, like 80s or like older?
I
like
feel like these like witch hands. It's really fucking
witchy.
weird. Yeah.
Witchy. Okay, cool. Witchy. Anything else that you notice about it?
As I talk about it, it sort of like pulls back a little.
Okay. What do you know about it?
It's familiar.
Does it have any stories or visuals that attach to it?
More like the first words that came to mind is, I don't like this. I don't want to be here.
Okay, that's the part that's coming in that's saying, I don't like this, I don't want to be there, is another part. It's a protector. Would that protector feel safe enough to go have some tea for a moment?
Yeah. I'll send that protector outside the office.
Yeah. And I want to thank that protector and just let that protector know that I've totally got you and I'm not going to take anxiety to anywhere that they don't need to go. Really high level right here. We're not going to go anywhere we shouldn't go today. Okay. I just want to thank that protector for coming in and just say, have a tea, but thank you so much for speaking up. Thank you. So with a little bit more permission just to talk to this part, what is the anxious part need?
The first thing that came up was a hug, reassurance, that I don't have to do this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that part of you know that you are here? That yourself, that your resourced, undamaged self, does it know that you're here?
I think so. So. And the reason why I say it like that is because I think one of the things that I've been struggling with for so long because of workaholism and being busy and on the move as kind of my go-to protector. As long as I'm on the move, I'm going to be okay. As long as I'm busy. I have had a deep feeling of loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. So
being in a quiet place up here makes me feel really lonely.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. How do you feel towards the part?
I feel sad towards her, tired of feeling lonely. I get it. It's painful.
So she knows you're here and you have some compassion for her. So I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but
yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. If she wasn't in such an extreme role of doing, and anxious.
Yeah.
What else would she be doing?
She'd be hanging out with her friends.
Hanging out with her friends. Okay.
A lot. She'd be doing fun shit. I don't know. Going for a hike.
Okay. Would you be there, self? Okay. In your own mind's eye, can you just take a moment to just visualize taking her by the hand and or however it visualizes for you, however it comes to your vision, taking her on that hike, see who's around, see whatever comes up. You can tell me whatever comes up, whatever you want to share.
I can totally see it. Totally. There's a black bear that is out with her cubs up there. And so I just see us walking down the path, and there's the black bear.
How does she feel with you on the hike?
Happy that I'm there.
Yeah. And is there anything that you want to say to her on this hike?
I'm not going anywhere.
Can you make a commitment to her right now that when you notice her, you can just take her by the hand and go on the hike and remind her that you're not going anywhere?
Is when you say notice her, are you talking about when that feeling comes back? Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When the anxiety starts to come in, can you just let her know?
I am not going to let you be there alone.
Right. And make a commitment maybe that you'll just take her on that hike. Maybe even literally go for a hike with her.
Totally.
Beautiful. How does she feel now? Just to close it out, how does she feel?
I think some of the protectors have come back in.
Okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. They're welcome back, Mel, because
they're like, no, I don't want to go on a hike. Like
that's okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. I want to thank them for stepping aside for the time that they did. They did a beautiful job. They are welcome back. We can always ask them to step aside when there's some space, but right now it's okay. They can come back. You now have what you have right now, Mel, is direct access from self to the part. It's so beautiful to witness. You have direct access from your adult resourced internal parent self to the part of you that's so protective and anxious. And you've given her a full media alert that you are available to her when she needs you.
Yeah.
Major step forward.
I worry a lot about anxiety. And I worry about how we seem to have a parenting crisis of parents who can't tolerate their kids' anxiety and are allowing their kids' anxiety to run the house. Can you give us some advice, especially given that teenagers are such emotional beings to begin with? How do you give space for the normal emotion without letting a teenager's emotion run your house or dictate what they do?
Well, thank you for bringing up this. I mean, it's a huge topic. And actually, between Untangled and the Emotional Lives of Teenagers, I published a book called Under Pressure, Confronting the Epidemic of Stress and Anxiety in Girls. But what I hear all the time is 80% applies to kids of all genders, which I am sure is true. And in that book, I actually make, at the outset, a case for healthy anxiety and a case for healthy stress. And we have always, as psychologists, recognized that healthy anxiety is the anxiety that alerts us when something's wrong. It is not on its own pathological. And we have not helped the situation by using the same word to describe healthy anxiety and something that we diagnose. It's sort of better. We have the word sadness and we have depression for the diagnosis, but we use anxiety, in both categories. So that doesn't help us much. And same with stress. Stress is actually the human experience of adaptation. We experience stress anytime things change, anytime we have to adapt to a new condition, and it can be a wonderful condition or a lousy condition, but we always experience stress under changed conditions. And we only consider stress pathological if it is chronic or traumatic. But all other stress, we just tuck into the, helping you grow, doesn't always feel good category. What I will tell you is that the most important thing for people to know about anxiety is that avoidance feeds anxiety. And this is one of the, again, most critical findings in psychology, and one that we have done a completely terrible job of getting out to the public. And here's how it works. If I, let's say, have some social avoidance, some social anxiety, And there's a party that I've been invited to, and it's a good party to go to, right? It's a rational, like, should be fun, a friend of mine's party. But say I feel anxious, and say I agree to go to the party, but then the day of, my anxiety is starting to really accelerate. And then I'm thinking, I don't think I should go. I don't want to go. And say my parent is like, it's just a party. You don't have to go, right? Here's what happens. The first thing that happens is I feel so much better, right? My anxiety was cresting, and then I get to avoid, and it immediately plummets. It's like what we call reinforcement, right? Instantly relief. And so the upshot of that is the next time I feel anxious, I know what helps me feel better. It's avoidance. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that I never go to the party and check out how it is, right? So whatever I have daydreamed about how terrifying this party is, or how cruel everyone will be at the party, that is now sealed in amber. And I continue to believe it because I have no counter evidence. Whereas if I go to the party, I'm like, oh, wait, it's not so bad. But if I don't go, so it actually entrenches anxiety to avoid the things we fear. Now, if a kid is avoiding school, which a lot of kids are right now, there's a third issue, which is the minute you don't show up at school, you are out of the loop socially and you are out of the loop academically. So it's that much harder to get back in. So there's not a lot in psychology where there is agreement across the entire field, where there is zero controversy. But on this one, everyone's in agreement that avoidance feeds anxiety, and everyone is in agreement that exposure is the answer. And what I mean by that is you have to get in. You have to, you don't have to go to every party all the time, but you have to baby step your way in. You have to go check out the party. You cannot have the reinforcement avoidance. You cannot have the daydream become the reality. And so if this is your kid and they're like, I can't go to school, I can't go to the party, I can't, fill in the blank, you say, all right, here's the deal. You're going to go to the party for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to forget something and text you and see if, you need me to pick you up. And if you need me to pick you up after 20 minutes, I'll get you. But if you can stay, that would be better. So you have to negotiate. You have to help them get in. Breathing is powerful for helping to control anxiety. Reframing is powerful for helping to control anxiety. But avoidance is anxiety's best friend.
It's devastating because you're right. Like, I think about the fact that I was homesick at every camp, so much so that I would just escalate it until the counselors got so tired and my parents would show up, because it works. It goes back to your original thing. We do these things because they work.
They work.
And when we allow our kid to keep transferring from one school to another because they can't handle it, we are locking in anxiety as a coping mechanism and avoidance as a coping mechanism. Wow. You are so good. He was constantly picked on at school. So, of course, he felt nervous in the morning before he had to head into school.
Sure.
Plus, the kid had dyslexia and ADHD, all of which was not diagnosed. So he's heading into a full day in a classroom where he physiologically, neurologically is incapable of doing what is going to be asked of him. And so his body, before entering that situation, sounds an alarm.
Totally.
And when the alarm sounds and the physiological changes happen, guess what physiological feeling he has? His stomach starts to rumble, because as the physiology of the alarm changes and the chemistry in his digestive tract changes, he starts getting butterflies that feel like pterodactyls. And then all of a sudden, instead of just giving himself a hug and going, it's going to be okay, today's going to be an okay day, I can face this. Instead of reassuring himself, he goes into his head and says, oh my God, my stomach, I think I'm going to puke. I can't go to school. Holy, and he ramps himself. We were dealing with panic attacks with this kid where he would literally bang his head on the kitchen island. I don't want to go to school, crying. He would force himself to he would get so worked up, he would actually throw up. I mean, it was horrible. And I now can see that all of the interventions that were being done with this kid with therapists, which were all about just change the channel upstairs. Right. And then he would turn to them and say, but sometimes when I change the channel, it takes me to a channel I don't want to watch. So what if I change the channel of my thoughts and I get another bad thought? Like, even he was reacting against it, but nobody taught us that what the kid needed was a hug, validation, reassurance in that moment physically to get the alarm to quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it. So, I think that's part of it, is that, especially with kids, especially with children, it's so important that they feel you, that they feel seen, heard, and loved. Touch is such a valuable thing with kids. It's just so amazing. My wife, Cynthia, is a somatic trauma therapist. She deals mostly with people that have pre-verbal trauma before the age of 7 years old. So they don't have a story about it, right?
Wow. How do they know they have trauma before the age of 7?
Because they feel it in their body. Because they feel alarmed every day and they don't know why. Because they haven't encoded it to a point where they can see. The amygdala never forgets. The amygdala encodes everything, birth trauma, everything. It encodes everything, but we don't have the retrieval mechanism to pull it back up. So we think we have no childhood memories, which is a bit of a semantic thing, because we do have childhood memories. We just can't retrieve them. That's the problem. And there's a whole reason for that I put on Instagram about how the hippocampus gets paralyzed, but I don't want to get too much into that. But basically, with Oakley, like it's getting him into his body, into a safe place. So you practice with him, this is what I do with, I know he's older now, but this is what I do with parents, is I put your hand on your child's heart, then put your other hand on their back about the same level as your front hand, and just sit there with them and just allow their nervous system to regulate, and just allow them to feel it, and create this safe place in your body. Because this is the next place I'd like to go with this little interview that we're doing.
Yeah.
Is finding us, like, people say, oh, I don't want to go to my body. It's like, I understand that. So how can we do that? Well, we find a place in our body that's either safe. With me, it's my breath around my nose, because I used to do a lot of meditation. And then what we do is we feel the alarm, and then we go into this safe place, and then we go back into the alarm.
Okay, so hold on. Let's walk through this. So you just reached up, and for those of you listening, we put uncut episodes of our podcast in long form up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Mel Robbins. You'll be able to watch him do this. But he just put his hands kind of like if you wore a pair of glasses, you'd put your hands kind of under where your glasses are along your cheeks. And so when you said the way that you could practice this. So here's a takeaway for how you could practice this. You just got what I would call the love sandwich. Hands on the heart, hands on the back.
Sure.
And just hold somebody.
Yeah.
When they are having an alarm go off in their body, until you can feel them slowly start to have the alarm turn off, and the clinical word being their nervous system starts to regulate again. They're in their body, they're in their safe space. But you also talked about this second tool where you locate a safe place in your body. And for you, it was sort of right here alongside your nose. I was trying to think of another one other than the heart. Like, there have been times where I've like kind of tucked my hands under my armpits. It's almost like a mini hug. Yeah. Almost like, I don't know what it is, that like, I suppose that it's, or like I could put my arms, I could give myself a hug kind of thing. Yeah. But so you could pick anywhere in your body, your stomach, for some people, like deep breathing. What are some other places that patients of yours have selected in the past to give people
it's
an
all
idea?
over. It's all, but basically I get them, where's a safe place in your body? And a lot of them will say, I don't feel safe. And I'll say, well, where's a neutral place? It's like, well, my right knee feels like there's no feeling in my right knee. It's like, okay, let's go into this pain of your heart, from this recent breakup that you've gone through. Now let's go and just bring our attention into that right knee. And then go back into this. I'm doing this quite a bit faster than I normally.
But when you say bring your attention to your right knee,
yeah.
If I'm doing this exercise with you, does that mean that I've got kind of my eyes closed and I'm mentally working my way down to my knee? Yeah. So you're mentally kind of locating your attention at your knee. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because that feels either safe or neutral, right?
Yep.
So what we're doing is we're basically training your unconscious mind that this pain that you're feeling in your heart is not all of you. Because what'll happen is the amygdala has no sense of time. So when you get triggered, you will go back, you will turn into that 11-year-old. And then basically what we need to do is train your amygdala like, no, I'm not back there. I'm not 11 years old anymore. I'm actually my age that I am now. You go into that, right knee that's neutral. Or if there's, for me, I go into the sinuses, right? So when I get alarm, I wake up with alarm every day. right? But I don't give it that much credibility anymore. And then I go into this place in my sinuses.
Do you actually touch it, or do you just feel it?
I touch it. Yeah, I touch it. And I can do it a little bit now. I might get a little zony when I do this, but basically, and what I do is I can locate the alarm in my solar plexus. I talk about this in the book.
Where are the solar plexus?
Oh, it's right where your ribs meet, right where the bottom part of the sternum.
Oh,
the breast.
gotcha. Okay.
So that's where I have my alarm from growing up with my schizophrenic dad. So I will go into that alarm. I will try and intentionally give it love and attention. And then I will go up into my sinus area that feels safe. And then I will go back into that place that feels uncomfortable. So the thing is, there's a theory that says when you experience a trauma as a child, part of you stays locked at that age for the rest of your life. Part of you, right? So what I'm
trying to do... At times I feel like all of me.
Yeah, and it can be very overwhelming because it's unconscious, Mel. Like it's not something that we consciously feel. We actually get transported through the amygdala to that time and through the insula. The insula is kind of like the place in our brain that kind of translate the body into the mind and the mind into the body. It's kind of like the way station. So I believe that we actually create this body memory, and I think the insula has something to do with this. And then we feel exactly the same way in our bodies now as we did when the trauma was occurring, which of course brings up all sorts of old memories, all sorts of old panic, and then we want to make sense of that.
Stories, all of it. You're right. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.